The story began in a quiet small town, but a dangerous chase was already about to begin. A mysterious man had returned to the road, determined to find the child who was taken away. Behind him were not only the police, but also a group of relentless pursuers. Milton sat inside the car, raised his gun with one hand, and fired at the vehicle chasing him. The impact sent the driver losing control and forced the car to stop. Before anyone could react, Milton had already stepped out with a shotgun. He walked toward the first man and quickly took him down, then searched him for important items. Another man tried to escape while Milton was distracted, but he only made it a few steps before Milton stopped him. After taking the cash, Milton dealt with the last person inside the car. He then approached the injured man and demanded to know where the girl had been taken. The remaining man had no choice but to reveal the location. Then he grabbed his bag and ignited the fuel on the ground. As a huge explosion lit up the night, Milton continued his mission. However, Milton soon faced a problem. He had no idea where Stillwater was located. To find a new ride, Milton walked into a nearby restaurant looking for information. From the server, he learned that Stillwater was actually an abandoned prison that had been left empty for years. While there, Milton noticed a Dodge muscle car parked outside. He asked who owned the vehicle. The server looked toward his coworker Piper. Milton immediately understood that the car belonged to her. At the same time, Piper was dealing with her own problems. After secretly giving a customer a free glass of milk, she was deliberately targeted by her boss. Unable to tolerate it anymore, Piper stood up for herself and quit on the spot. When she walked out of the restaurant, Milton had already slipped into her car. Piper had no idea she was being followed. She started the engine and drove home, but not far from the restaurant, the car suddenly broke down. Piper opened the hood, and thick smoke poured out. The overheated engine left her unable to fix the problem. That was when Milton appeared. He offered her a deal. If Piper gave him a ride, he would repair the car for free. Piper agreed, but told him she could only take him nearby. For Milton, that was enough. He checked the engine for a moment. Soon, the car started again. Piper was surprised by what she saw. She realized this stranger was far from ordinary, but neither of them knew someone else was already following them. A strange-looking man slowly approached from the woods. His movements were unusual, and his presence felt different from everyone else. Soon, he arrived at the restaurant where Milton had been. He helped the server throw away some trash. Then he approached the owner and introduced himself as an accountant. He began asking about Milton's whereabouts. The server quickly gave him directions. Meanwhile, Piper had already driven Milton close to her home. Before leaving, Milton noticed something was wrong with her. Then Milton walked away alone. However, when Piper returned home, she found her fiancé with another woman. She immediately understood what had happened. Piper forced the woman out and confronted her fiancé when he demanded that she leave the car behind. Piper finally lost patience. She reminded him that the car belonged to her, but he refused to back down and pushed her to the ground. From a distance, Milton saw everything. He turned around and came back. Without hesitation, he knocked Piper's fiancé away. After several strikes, the man could no longer fight back. As night arrived, Milton drove away with Piper. Not long after, Piper slowly woke up. She moved to the passenger seat after everything that happened. She only wanted a drink to clear her head. Milton stopped at a roadside bar, but the area had strict alcohol rules. Anyone who wanted a drink needed to show identification. Piper came up with an idea. She took out Milton's wallet. She had kept it earlier as a backup in case he tried to steal her car. The server looked at Milton's ID and laughed. His identification had already expired, but after confirming they were both adults, the server still served them. However, Piper was no longer interested in drinking. She left Milton behind and went looking for the young bartender. Meanwhile, outside the bar, a man wearing a jacket approached the owner. He offered to pay a large amount of money to rent out the entire place. At the same time, Piper's former fiancé was reporting the stolen car to the police. Right after the call ended, someone knocked on his door. When he opened it, the mysterious accountant was standing outside. The accountant walked inside without saying much. He simply smelled the air around him. Soon, he confirmed that Milton had been there. Piper's ex-fiancé became annoyed by the strange man. He demanded to know who he was, but before he could finish speaking, the accountant casually pushed him aside. The man was shocked. He could not understand why everyone he met that day seemed impossible to deal with. Angry, he grabbed a baseball bat and tried to fight back, but the accountant easily took it away. After getting the information, the accountant picked up a photo from the table. The picture showed Piper and Milton together, but the accountant simply took out an ordinary coin. He tossed it into the air. The coin transformed into a special identification badge. The two officers immediately changed their attitude. They realized the accountant had a special identity. Soon, they began helping him track down Milton. Meanwhile, inside a motel near the bar, Piper was relaxing in the room. She asked the bartender to paint her nails. At the same time, Milton was spending time with the server from the bar. Suddenly, Piper noticed a strange figure outside the window. She pulled back the curtain and saw the jacket man secretly entering the bar. Piper immediately realized something was wrong. She quietly followed him inside the bar. The television was showing breaking news. The report revealed that a cult leader named Jonah was connected to the disappearance of a young couple and their newborn daughter. Before Piper could fully understand what was happening, the bar door opened. She quickly hid nearby. Then she saw a familiar figure walk inside. It was Jonah, the man wanted in the news report. The jacket man was revealed to be one of Jonah's followers. Soon, more cult members arrived. They entered the bar carrying weapons. Their only goal was simple: find Milton and remove the person standing in their way. The entire room turned into a battlefield. Just when things seemed impossible, the enemy suddenly took a heavy hit. Piper had arrived just in time, using the farming tool in her hand. She stopped the attack and saved Milton. For the first time, the two of them truly fought side by side. After the battle ended, Milton noticed that the bartender had been taken down. Piper noticed it as well, but they had no time to stay. More enemies could arrive at any moment. The two quickly left the area. However, as Milton and Piper prepared to escape, the accountant arrived with 2 police officers. At the same time, they narrowly passed Jonah, who was leaving the bar. On the other side, Milton and Piper were also trying to get away. The two groups suddenly crossed paths. The officers immediately pulled out their weapons and opened fire. Milton reacted quickly and fought back. After a short exchange, the officers were forced to retreat. But during the chaos, Milton was hit in the abdomen. He had no choice but to hide behind cover. Milton knew he could not handle everyone at once. So he handed a gun to Piper and asked her to protect herself. At that moment, one of the officers suddenly rushed out from the side. Piper had no time to think and pulled the trigger. Meanwhile, Milton quickly dealt with the other officer. After that, he took Piper, who was still shocked by everything, and drove away. Just as they left, they encountered the accountant arriving at the scene, but Milton did not stop. He stepped on the gas and disappeared into the distance. When morning came, Piper noticed something strange. The gunshot wound on Milton's body was already starting to heal, but she had no time to focus on that. Since last night, she had been dragged into a dangerous situation. She had even become involved in a fight with the police. The more Piper thought about it, the harder it was to accept. She pointed a gun at Milton and demanded the truth. Seeing that there was no reason to hide anymore, Milton finally revealed everything. He told Piper that the woman Jonah killed was his daughter. The baby that Jonah took away was his granddaughter. She was the only family Milton had left. So whether it was finding the girl or making Jonah pay, Milton had to reach Jonah's hideout. As the two continued moving forward, danger appeared again. The accountant suddenly drove straight toward them. Milton immediately told Piper to get down. Then he grabbed his shotgun and fired back. The bullets shattered the car window. At the same time, 2 young men passing under a bridge noticed a police car parked nearby. They were about to check it out when the door suddenly exploded open. A person inside was thrown out with incredible force. Moments later, the accountant calmly stepped out of the vehicle. He looked at the 2 teenagers and simply told them, "We'll meet again in 3 months." After saying that, the accountant walked away, leaving the 2 confused. Meanwhile, Milton was still explaining everything to Piper. He revealed that his daughter had been drawn in by Jonah while she was in college. Soon, Milton spotted her in the front row. She was being held by a woman, but before he could get closer, several of Jonah's followers suddenly appeared. Milton and Piper were surrounded and captured. It turned out everything had been planned. The church was a trap prepared by Jonah to keep Piper safe. Milton had no choice but to drop his weapon. Then Jonah walked out from inside. He picked up the child and announced to everyone that the baby was a so-called gift from God. He claimed that a special ritual would help his followers survive future disasters, but Milton refused to accept his story. Instead, he exposed Jonah's hidden past. Milton said he had witnessed everything that happened that night. After Jonah took the child, he tried to control Milton's daughter, but she fought back with everything she had. That was what caused Jonah to lose control. After speaking, Milton looked at the man wearing the jacket. He pointed out that the man had been there that night and had seen everything. He decided to take Piper back to the group and force her to undergo their so-called transformation. Then Jonah ordered his followers to put Piper into the RV. Everyone believed Milton was finished, but suddenly, the man lying on the ground opened his eyes. Milton stood up. Meanwhile, Jonah quickly realized Milton was still alive. Instead of panicking, he used the situation to influence his followers even more. He turned Milton's recovery into another so-called miracle. This made his followers believe in him even more. But Milton was already catching up. He pushed the car to full speed and quickly passed the RV. The pressure forced the driver to change direction and turn onto a side road. At the same time, Piper found her chance to fight back. Inside the vehicle, she struggled with a female follower. The two fought for control in the small space. Meanwhile, Milton was chased by two vehicles into an abandoned factory. After entering the building, he turned on his headlights and checked the road ahead. Then he performed a quick drift and stopped perfectly in the sunlight. Milton raised his weapon and accurately hit the vehicle behind him. Meanwhile, Piper was fighting Jonah directly, but the difference between them was obvious. Jonah kept overpowering her and tried to control the situation. Just when Piper was about to lose, she grabbed the necklace around Jonah's neck. She used it as a weapon and struck him.